here today with Mehmet Yavuz, CTO of Celona. We're recording our second episode of Office Hours. Office Hours is our opportunity to hear from Mehmet on the technical details of private mobile networks, 5G, and the wider technology industry. I'm your host, Greg Yatman, and today we are going to be talking about CBRS. Remember that acronym. So with that, Mehmet, thank you for talking to me today about this. And I was hoping that you could dive in and go deep on exactly what is CBRS and why it matters, not only to the industry, but also to Celona.
Thanks, Greg. CBRS. CBRS stands for Citizens Broadband Radio Service. And essentially what it is it's 150 megahertz of spectrum available for a bunch of use cases, essentially for many local private deployments in enterprise and so forth. So you can think about it as new free lanes for wireless services. And how do you use this 150 megahertz of new spectrum? This is established as a mechanism by FCC, and it is different than the traditional unlicensed spectrum like 2.4 or 5 gigahertz that we're all familiar with. This is more a shared spectrum. Unlike unlicensed, this is a shared spectrum. And basically what happened is, if you go back to 2015 timeframe, the FCC took a groundbreaking approach to spectrum allocation. There was this spectrum used by some incumbents in limited geographic regions and in small chunks. So out of this 150 megahertz, a small part may be used by the shipborne Navy radars or fixed satellite stations, or in some rural places, wireless internet service providers may use some parts of it. But in a majority of the US and majority of the time, a bulk of this 150 megahertz spectrum is unused. So basically, FCC established a 3-tier usage. And they said, okay, the first tier are the incumbents. If they are using a small part of this spectrum, they can continue to use it. They are the incumbents, their usage is guaranteed. Then they established the second tier, and they said out of this 150 megahertz, 70 megahertz of the spectrum can be licensed. And this second tier is called Priority Access Layer, PAL. And there will be a licensing of this part of the spectrum later this year, and that will be not nationwide, but county by county basis. And the third tier is the most exciting part, which is called the GAA, General Authorized Access, GAA layer. And that is basically the third tier that has the right to use the spectrum up to 150 megahertz in any place where the first and the second tier are not using the spectrum. And honestly, in practice, this majority of the locations have access to easily 100 plus megahertz of spectrum in US.
So I guess one of the questions that I get quite often is, as opposed to 4G LTE or soon to be 5G, can I just turn on my phone and access CBRS, or is there something else that I need to do to make that happen?
Yeah, great question. And this band, the CBRS band, is at 3.5 gigahertz. That 150 megahertz is between 3.55 and 3.7. And this is one of the many spectrum bands the LTE technology supports. Now, not every device supports this band, but most of the new devices since last year have been supporting this band. As examples, iPhone 11s, Samsung Galaxy phones, and now lots of tablets such as iPad Pro, or even a lot of IoT devices, IoT gateways from multiple vendors. They are all supporting this band. And we see multiple operators are making this band a requirement for the devices. So basically, it's becoming a mainstream band for many of the devices in US. Now, the second aspect is the device needs to have the SIM cards and the access credentials to this network, somewhat similar to like the Wi-Fi SSID concept. And that's all the things that we take care of in our solution that we provide to enterprises by Celona.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that there is a document that's been created that from Celona that does have a list of devices that are capable on CBRS. So I think I'll put that in the description so people can access that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should also mention that there is a really strong ecosystem out there. There is an alliance called CBRS Alliance. And I believe there are now more than 150 members of this alliance, and that includes the, infrastructure vendors, some operators, some device vendors, and there is a link to all the devices that's being certified by FCC that's kept track of. I believe there's a link from CBRS Alliance, but there's a lot of material there as well. And the list of devices are ever increasing, essentially supporting this band.
Thinking about how my phone works, for example, my mobile phone, I pick it up and the nearest mobile tower can be, quite a distance away from me, but I still have a great signal. Would that apply to inside an environment as well, where I can have greater distance in between the access points, as it were, very much like Wi-Fi? Is it, or is it not like that at all?
The technology is designed such that the LTE and 5G can cover very, very large range, right? So that definitely benefits the deployments. So in the indoor deployments, for example, what we see is you will need maybe 1/3 or 1/4 the number of APs to cover a certain region when you use LTE and 5G compared to Wi-Fi. For example, instead of using 10 Wi-Fi APs, you may need only 2 or 3 LTE or 5G APs. When you go to outdoor applications, now you can get to very large coverage ranges. I mean, it can go up to a mile or more, even in some cases. And that enables many use cases that goes from the parking lots to the whole campus coverage, maybe for a university, or maybe you even go to use cases such as industrial utility use cases and so forth, where there's a desire to cover even larger ranges with this technology.
Do you see Wi-Fi and CBRS living together, like co-mingling together to have kind of a best of both worlds approach?
That's fair to say. Of course, Wi-Fi has been a great success story. It enabled many use cases, and it provides, good data rate and required performance for a bunch of applications. But then for some new use cases which require this high level of predictability and quality of service, you see that the CBRS spectrum combined with the LTE and 5G technology is a nice complement to that. Mm-hmm. And the key aspect is really to bring this technology in an easy to deploy and configure fashion to the enterprises, so that it's not a totally different antibody to the, if you will, to the enterprise ecosystem. It's something that can be deployed as an overlay. Yeah. And in our solutions at Celona, we have spent a lot of time and effort to ensure that, to leverage the existing enterprise infrastructure, from the existing Ethernet to the back end, device management, policy management, access control, IP address management, DHCPs, and so forth. So many different aspects are all taken into account, so that the enterprise IT or the managed service providers can deploy the solution just like they deploy Wi-Fi, and don't compromise from the benefits of the LTE and 5G.
Well, you got a little technical there at the very end, but I followed you, and I appreciate it. I think I have a better understanding, and hopefully our viewers as well, our listeners as well, have a better view of what CBRS is and how it works within their enterprise. Thank you, Mehmet, again, for giving us that deep dive. And thanks to everyone for joining us with Office Hours. If you do like our show, make sure you like, subscribe, tell all your friends, tell everyone in your business, and come back soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. And yeah, just let us know about your questions as well.